Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm here today with Bill Stevens, who previously was the alderman, I want to get that right, alderman of the 12th Ward of the city of St. Louis. And we're here to talk more about, obviously, protecting 2025, our objections to the Project 2025 evilness that's currently being rolled out even before Trump ends up in office. So welcome, Bill. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
We're going to talk about with Bill about LGBTQ concerns over Project 2025 and other things that are going on. So, Bill, do you have something you want to start off with?
Yes, indeed. So, Project 2025 is a concerted effort by many minds with PhDs and the Heritage Foundation, so on and so forth, that ultimately seeks to sort of revert the United States to this sort of American 1950s white picket fence reality. In my field, American Studies, we call it the myth of the American dream. And of course, this means the erasure of any measures that have moved society forward, have made progress, have expanded civil rights, and our understanding as humans as to what humanity really means in the following decades since the 50s. And of course, the LGBTQIA plus community, which I am a very proud member of, is most certainly in the crosshairs and already under attack, and has been under attack for by supporters of Project 2025 and the ideologues that sort of adhere to it for many years now.
Well, we know that they're already giddy about rounding up brown people that they say are illegal. They like to use that word. Yeah, they're not going to document they're illegal, right? But also, people, this is also what concerns me too, the people who are citizens. They would round up citizens because they would like to do away with if you're born in United States soil. You're automatically a U.S. citizen. That's what the 14th Amendment, I think.
It is the 14th, yeah.
And they are willing to just dispense with that. If nobody withholds or stands against them, I guess they do whatever they want, whether it's in the Constitution or not. But they're giddy, it seems, about doing all of that and rounding people up and sticking them in camps. But they're giddy about other things too. And apparently attacking like trans people is also quite high on their list. So is that something that you've been looking at?
Quite a bit, actually. And it is a sort of preeminent concern, I think, so in addition to being your former student and being a former elected official, I'm also the chair of the Missouri Democratic LGBTQ Caucus. So I keep my fingers on the pulse of legislation across the country when it comes to the LGBT community. And already we are seeing attacks against the trans community first. And I want to specify first because, one, my stance is that you cannot have the LGB without the T, right? There are some within my community that believe we should separate out gender identity or the trans community. And I do not hold that view myself, and I'm most certainly not about to coming into 2025. But what we already see are attempts, pre-filed bills in Congress, right, to ban nationwide trans healthcare for minors. We see yesterday there was as of, I suppose I should say, December 4th, I'm not sure when this will go out, but on December 4th, the Supreme Court of the United States heard a challenge to a Tennessee law that banned healthcare for trans minors. Missouri has just lost Missouri, depending on which side you're on, right? A Missouri law was upheld by a Missouri court that not only banned healthcare for trans minors, but also for the incarcerated in Missouri. And I was really, really pleased that you touched on the 14th Amendment when it came to birthright citizenship, right? Because the 14th Amendment, which is the second of the three Reconstruction Amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, it's really one of the most important amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And we see that in the 20th century. So it comes about 1857, maybe the 1860s, somewhere in that timeline. It is used in every single Supreme Court case to not only incorporate the Bill of Rights to the states, but to expand our civil rights, right? Griswold v. Connecticut, Roe versus Wade, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, they all hinge on the 14th. And then cases that are relevant to me, like United States v. Windsor, Obergefell v. Hodges, Lawrence v. Texas, they hinge on those women's cases, right? Griswold, Roe, and Planned Parenthood v. Casey. And all of them hinge on the 14th. And it defines citizenship, It has the due process and equal protection clauses. It actually has quite a few clauses to it. So I think ultimately Project 2025 is seeking to either by de jure or de facto repeal the 14th Amendment. And you stated earlier that who says they have to obey the law? When you have a full sweep of the federal government, the judicial branch, the executive branch, the legislative branch, authoritarian governments do not abide by the rules by their very definition. And of course, we already see these attacks, and anxiety is high at the moment, I think, not just here in Missouri, but across America.
Yeah, because there's nothing more important right now than determining whether one trans person in Congress can use the bathroom, right?
Oh, absolutely. The first, no less, right?
Mm.
And that's the greatest danger, isn't it? There's always a boogeyman. And that boogeyman is always an other. It's another facet of authoritarianism, right? Which I hope you don't mind being an academic yourself, but I'll use authoritarianism along the same lines as fascism and maybe even totalitarianism. Hannah Arendt is a phenomenal starting point in these studies, as well as Timothy Snyder. But I'll use them a little interchangeably, and I probably shouldn't, but just between us friends. But it always requires another, and for some, it's going to be illegals, right? Not immigrants, not humans, but illegals. For others, it's going to be trans people lurking in the bathrooms or grooming your children. And once those are gone, right? I mean, that's what they're gunning for. It doesn't stop there. It's going to be someone else.
Right. You always have another group that you can go to. And or you make one up. I don't even know why people buy into it. That is a big question mark for me, because I've seen at least 3 women now being interviewed by various people who insisting they voted for Trump because teachers are taking kids out of the classroom to give them gender reassignment surgery at school. And I'm like, do you really think teachers are trained to do surgery and they do that in the school building? And how many, impossible things did you believe before breakfast? Because if you at least had said they're putting them in unmarked black vans and taking them to some medical facility, at least then you'd have doctors in your little story, I guess, but that the teacher is just taking them out of class to give them surgery, in the empty classroom down the hall. I mean, why is this even, a story? Why are you repeating this? It's just too unbelievable, but they seem quite sincere about believing it.
Well, my question is, what failed in our society, right, that leads you to believe such just extraordinarily outlandish ideas, right? But then we saw it during the Hillary campaign, right? What was it that there was a
sex trafficking ring in the basement of a pizza place that doesn't have a basement?
That didn't even have a basement, right? And someone went in with a gun and said, I'm freeing those kids. They truly and honestly believed it. In law, or at least in First Amendment law, it is the sincerely held belief standard, right? And these are sincerely held beliefs. And I don't mean to draw a parallel between child sex rings and the non-existent basements of pizza places, or forced child sex reassignment surgeries in schools. I don't mean to correlate those to religion, but they are at this point sincerely held beliefs by those that are supporting this incoming administration and who voted for it. And when you ask them where, oh my God, where is that happening? I'm sorry, they have litter boxes so that kids who identify as furries can use the bathroom during the day. Where is this happening? And they never have an answer, but they certainly get they certainly get upset when you ask for proof. Do your own research. Well, I'm not putting out the claim. I mean, but we are unfortunately in a post-truth society. Who was it? Kellyanne Conway, alternative facts. Yeah. And that's exactly what this is. A concerted effort, an attack against not just the LGBT community or the immigrant community or the undocumented civilian, undocumented resident community. It's attack against intellectualism itself, which of course is another characteristic of authoritarianism. It feels very much like leading a horse to water, and then the horse is proclaiming the water is actually condensed chemtrails or something. It's just, again, I feel like I am gaslit every day by America, and it's just bewildering.
Yeah, there's really quite a few Americans who let me down. It's like I was assuming we had a little bit of civilization. I was looking forward maybe to after Biden to have a little bit more civilized country. I don't, but I feel like we're just sort of backing up, and that we're just going to end up in this sort of squalor of the Middle Ages or something, where women don't have rights again, and the blacks going to go back to the farm or plantation, or and there's some white dudes in Washington D.C. just like laughing over their billions of dollars. I mean, that seems to be where they want to go.
Yeah, and where they're taking all of us with them, right? Or rather, I don't think it's with them. I think where they're sending all of us, because abortion bans never harmed those that had the means to seek abortions in other states, right? And it was those with the means to seek abortions in other states who overwhelmingly supported abortion bans. It truly is the era of rules for thee and not for me. Do as I say, not as I do. I mean, it's all these things that I feel I was raised with, and I'm 31, right? I'm a young millennial. I suppose I'm a millennial, Gen Z cusper, nearly. I'm a little older than that, but I feel like these are all the characteristics and all the ways of functioning in society, or the ways that a society should function, that I was taught to oppose and taught to be better than and avoid. And I mean, this is so incongruent with the values that I was raised with by the same people who are now voting like that. I mean, truly, it's been a complete and total 180, where those who taught me what we consider to be the myth of the melting pot, right? But at the time, was I think a response to the myth of the American dream, actually. But America's this great melting pot, and suddenly those very same people who taught me that 25, 20 years ago are the ones trying to pick out the pieces. And it's the same people who told you to be careful on the internet who will now believe anything that they see on the internet. I believe you point out at a lunch that we're a society that went from, it would be insane to put any self-identifying information on the internet, on social media, in the beginning, in the early days, and now it's insane if you don't self-identify on the internet or whatnot. And it's just, everything feels very topsy-turvy. But in the most dangerous of lights, right? To bring it back to Project 2025, these are concerted, it's 1,000 pages of plans, of well thought out plans of how martial law could be implemented, of how one could subvert, how one could weaponize the Constitution. So I spoke to the Reconstruction era amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th earlier. Well, the 13th doesn't abolish slavery. It makes one exception for it, which is when someone has been convicted of a crime and as punishment. So I think it's very well within the realm of possibility that we have constitutional slavery in the United States. And I mean, there's certainly an argument that already exists, right? Where the incarcerated are paid little to no wages, but forced to perform labor and so on and so forth, right? We have a very broken justice system. We've had a very broken justice system. We do not have a rehabilitative prison system, right? We're a punitive country. And I think that maybe this is the natural outcome of being such a punitive country and a punitive people, is that it's finally caught up to the rest of us. And
yeah, they just seem to want to punish, right? And the more people that get punished, the better. So,
cruelty is the point.
Cruelty is the point. It's a feature, not a bug.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
How can we be as cruel as possible? Because somehow this makes us feel nice and warm inside or something. I don't know. But I mean, it seems to be the whole point. Because you're like, why would you support this unless you just want to see people hurt? How can you try to deport 11 million, 20 million, whatever Tom Holland millions he thinks he can deport, and he's completely cool with bloody mass deportations. He's completely cool with separating families. And then he's completely cool with how much money he has to spend. Someone asked him that the estimate was like would cost $86 billion a year to get rid of 1 million. And he wanted to, deport a lot more than that. And he's like, well, how much do you want to pay for your safety? And it's just like, but I'm not paying for my safety. I'm paying for you to hurt people,
Mm-hmm.
The more people who get hurt, can we get rid of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and, and the Affordable Care Act? So we want lots of people to die because they can't access health care or whatever. And if 1 million people die, cool. I mean, during COVID, it was like, well, don't get vaccinated and don't wear a mask whenever. And then 1 million people died who probably didn't have to.
Yeah.
Take ivermectin or bleach or whatever, inject bleach or whatever you were supposed to.
The bleach. Oh my God.
So, it's almost like if this will only hurt 1,000 people, we're not like, I know, I don't know. But if you could say, hey, we could get 1 million people to die if we have this policy, then suddenly they're all interested. Ooh, 1 million people could die. It just seems like that's their goal, because what else?
Well, and coming from a policy and government background, right, a legislative background specifically, there is a certain inhumanity that comes to it, where when you're speaking on a scale, so the city of St. Louis has about a population of roughly 300,000, right, as of the 2020 census. The Census Bureau, not to pull back the curtain on the wizard at all, but the Census Bureau always builds in a little margin of error, right? Because some people will miss it or they won't respond to numerators. I don't think they're actually called numerators now that I've said that. Circulators, I'm not sure. They won't respond to the Census Bureau, or they just won't get counted for whatever reason. So they always build in a bit of a buffer. Say the population's at 300,000, right? Well, one person suffering a harm or even dying really is a statistic in the grand scheme of it, on paper, right? And it's a terrible thing to reckon with. Accidents happen. I'm thinking of a specific situation that really stuck with me where I had prioritized other projects than one particular road project because it had already had a road study in the past 10 years and they'd made changes and whatnot. So I prioritized other areas that needed attention and made them safer. And then a week before Christmas, we had a fatal accident on that road at an intersection that I use every single day. And I mean, it's hard to reckon with that, right? You feel a sense of responsibility and so on and so forth. Statistically, it's an accident. Accidents happen. I think what's so insidious about Project 2025 is exactly as you've said. The cruelty is the point, and they're seeking to do mass harm on a very statistically significant scale. I mean, there is no way of validating the harm that they've very plainly published. This is a published book. This is a published ideology. It is a blueprint, a legislative, executive, and judicial blueprint for overtaking America. And 77 million Americans said, hell yeah, full speed ahead. It just bewilders me. And it also hurts quite a bit. We enjoyed, I think, as an LGBT community, a very brief set of years where we weren't the hot button topic at every dinner table, or everyone just sort of chilled out about gay people and, the LGBT community, and everything calmed down. And then Trump came into play and riled it all back up. And I would say it's worse than it's been in, I would say, many decades, at least the decades that I've lived, right? There were absolutely unfriendly years, and years where you were acutely aware of your surroundings and where you were. This is a very different feeling. I mean, this feels like a constant looming nationwide threat. And it's just been so readily accepted by so many tens of millions of Americans. And those are just the ones that voted. I worry about, what is it, the 36% that didn't vote this election? How many of them would subscribe or prescribe to this ideology, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that, I don't think a lot of the voters get it either. I saw the day after the election, somebody I've since unfriended on Facebook was kind of crowing about how, oh yeah, all those liberals, they're worried about, no one's taking your rights away, you know? And of course, these are white people who are saying this. And it's like, you don't see it, do you? I mean, you think that you just, it doesn't cause harm to vote for Donald Trump. Well, it does cause harm. A lot of people are going to be harmed because of it. And you're deriding that, like, oh, they thought that it was going to be scary or people would get, lose their rights, but that's not going to happen. Well, really? Because they sure tried hard the last time, and they now got a 1,000-page book detailing how they're going to do it. And you're like, well, those liberals are, well, no, I didn't publish Project 2025. They did. It's their words coming out of their mouths. There's nothing liberal involved at all,
Well, in addition to being a post-truth society, I think that we're sort of post-academic society as well. And I don't know how much of that is. What's complicated is whenever you're dealing with people, which of course in politics you deal with people a lot. It's a hazard of the job. I think who was it, Churchill, who said the greatest argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. And I'm sorry to the British, I've butchered that quote, but I do think there's some sort of joking truth in it, right? One thing that I think is so terribly easy to lose track of, actually. I've just completely lost my thought there, but I'm just so terribly shocked, surprised that we put all this right before people. Again, Project 2025 is a published book, but it's 1,000 pages, right? I can understand that. You're not going to sit down and read 1,000 pages, when you're struggling to make ends meet and so on and so forth, or maybe you're working multiple jobs, or you're helping to take care of a family member, or so on and so forth, right? Okay, I get it. Not to mention that 54% of adults in America can't read past the 6th grade level. Okay, we'll try to explain constitutional philosophy, right? A constant criticism of the Harris campaign this cycle was, well, she's not good on economics. She had a 90-plus page economic plan. And I think therein lies the disconnect, is that we keep putting things before people that are not only incredibly dense and complex, pieces of scholarship. Project 2025, for all of its ugliness and all of its cruelty and all of the terror that lies within its pages, is an academic text, right? And economic policy, that is an academic text. The subjects are too nuanced to be anything less. And yet we can hardly watch TikTok videos, or YouTube shorts, or I guess Meta or Facebook has them now too, every platform does, where they're only a few seconds long. What was it? Do you remember? Oh, a few years after
When it was Vine.
Vine.
And it was like a 6 seconds, I think, was the limit for a while.
Right. And people did incredibly brilliant sketches where they used every single microsecond of those 6 or 7 seconds that they had, or whatever. I think you're right. I think it was thereabouts. I think it was relatively short. How can you hope to put these texts or these materials before people, right? It's like leading the horse to the water, but the horse not knowing how to drink, or not having the attention span to take a sip, and then wondering why it's so damn thirsty, right? Or why things are so bad and whatnot. So the horse blames the farmer that led them there in the first place. I don't know why I'm so stuck on farm analogies at the moment, but
that's your thing for today, I guess. Farms. Yeah, well,
Stardew Valley.
Yeah, and I think we have to look at. I was pretty sure she was going to win. Actually, I thought, who could vote for this man again? Who could vote for him again? And then when he's coming, it's just like, everyone was like, looks like Trump's going to win. You're like, what? And so I didn't watch the TV all night. And then at 2 a.m, I woke up and thought, well, I got to check, So I did go look at my computer, and it was like Trump projected to win. I'm like, this can't. What am I suddenly in a parallel dimension? How can so many people overlook that he's a rapist, he's trafficked children, he's a convicted criminal, and he doesn't pay his lies all the time, never pays his bills, bankrupts everything he touches. He has no redeeming character qualities at all. And and you're like, yeah, that's the guy, that's my guy. how does that even happen? I don't know. And so that was another very depressing night. Now, the first time he got elected, I cried a lot. I didn't cry so much this time, but I was really down. And usually I won't like try to wake my husband at 2 a.m, but this time I'm like, screw it. So I just like climbed into bed and put my arms around him like, oh my God, I don't want to know what's going on the TV. And then so after the first few days, I ate my feelings a lot. There was a lot of ice cream and candy and donuts and things. And then like, okay, so now that I'm gonna like stop eating my feelings, what am I gonna do? And so this playlist is the one thing I've come up with so far. I've been halfway jokingly asking people to be part of the Underground Railroad when we have to organize it. So I know some people told me they're willing to be part of it. Bill, could I count you in to be in the Underground Railroad? Should we need one?
What?
Would you be part of the Underground Railroad if we need one?
Oh, absolutely. And I again, going back to this sort of post-academic society, how many Americans would think that the Underground Railroad was quite literally a subterranean rail system, right?
Probably.
And I've always maintained that it's okay not to know something, right? You might not know about the Underground Railroad, but you know all about, I don't know, some other subject, right? You might not know anything about anything that I know, but you know a lot of things that I don't know. And I've always been very forgiving in this sort of not knowing. Now it feels, you pose the question of, why did we vote for him again? How did he get reelected? And I would toss, in addition to that question, how do we grapple with that? The fact that 77 million Americans looked at Donald Trump and said, you know what, he does deserve a second term. And I'm with him, right? Make America great again. When, again, what a movement to educate people on Project 2025, right? What a movement to put our own faces and lend our own voices to the narrative of how this will harm us as individuals, right? What a movement to educate our fellow citizen on these 1,000 pages of terror, right? I thought she was going to win too. In my own campaign this past primary, I didn't progress in the primary. I wasn't the only one. Cori Bush also lost her seat, and then a young gentleman running for an open seat in the district just north of me had all the data that said, yes, I'm the sure clear winner. Yes, we've been getting, I myself have been getting all these, ones on my scale of 1 to 5, which in politics is your ones or your diehard absolute, I'm voting for you, you don't have to come back and door knock again because I'm with you, Bill. Your 5s are your absolutely not. You do not have to come back because there is nothing that will change my mind about voting against you. And we had a lot more 1s than what we actually received. I don't know if people have wisened up to, oh, well, stop getting mailers or stop getting calls or texts or whatnot if I tell them that I'm diehard supporters. But we saw it all across America because the polling and the data, there was that poll in Iowa that showed Harris was going to win, and by a few points, right? By a woman who hadn't been wrong before, disastrously wrong, right? I mean, so much of governance, not just political campaigns, not just legislative, but so much of anything wherein someone has the power to say no. The greatest power in government is the ability and the authority to say no. We make those decisions. We decide to say yes or no based on data. Everything is data driven. What does this mean for 2026, right? The midterm elections, when the data just can't be trusted, or when people know how to game the data, right? They know what to say to get you to stop bothering them. And what does it mean when, again, 77 million Americans are absolutely totally on board with Project 2025 because somewhere in those 1,000 pages, it hurt the person or the people that they specifically wanted to hurt. It might not be the LGBT community, but maybe it really is illegal immigrants, right? Undocumented immigrants, undocumented residents. Maybe it's the welfare queens, right? Where are the welfare queens? Where are they? Where is this welfare royalty that I've always heard about, right? just all these myths. Like, we are a post-truth, post-academic nation of myth makers, and we just gobble it up and press our votes into the box, or press the buttons, or try to clear the hanging chads. What does it mean when you can't trust the very systems we've relied on for decades?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but we'll continue to fight the fight, I guess, Bill. And appreciate you coming on to my channel tonight. And for those of you out here who might be watching, remember to hit like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it if you did that. And you can hit that little bell notification if you want to know when I upload more videos. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for having me.